So today we're going to review this little bird right here. This is the Autel Evo Lite Plus. It's been out for about 6 months now. So this is not going to be near the first review you're ever going to see. But there might be something in this you might want to listen to. So let's get to it. Hey, Brian coming to you today from BMX Aerial Visuals, and today we're going to do a review on the Autel Evo Lite Plus drone. This is going to be something of a review, a comparison, some opinions, some tips, and hopefully you'll learn some things or hear some things that you may not have heard on any of the other reviews that have been done on this drone since it's been out now for 6 months or so. There's been plenty of reviews, so mine is not by far the first. I have had this drone now for a month now, and I've flown it as much as weather permits, which is quite a bit, 2 or 3, 4 times a week. And so I've got a pretty good idea how it stacks up against some of the other competition out there. The main one we're going to be talking about and comparing it to is the DJI Air 2S drone. I also own this drone, so it makes sense that I would go ahead and do a side-by-side comparison of these two drones. Some people might say that, well, the Mavic 3 is something it should be compared to. I don't think so. I think the Mavic 3 is in a little bit, well, for one thing, it's definitely in a little bit higher price class, but the sensors are not comparable. I mean, the sensor on the Mavic 3 is supposed to be much better, and from what I've seen, I know it's still got a few bugs that are being worked out through firmware updates. So I'm going to stay away from any kind of comparisons other than off-the-cuff comments about the Mavic 3. Because I do have some friends that I fly with here in Houston that do fly the Mavic 3. And so I have had some hands-on with it. But it's just not in the same class as the Autel Evo Lite Plus. Whereas I do believe the DJI Air 2S is. So let's get to it, and how about we start out with some of the things that I found out about this drone, shall we? So one of the things that I tend to do quite a bit with my drones is I fly it near dusk or low light. It's just one of my preferred methods of getting some nice photography and videography. For years, DJI has had that bottom light on the bottom that you can use to help spot it at a pretty good distance at night. Autel has taken it a little bit further. This light is programmable. Some of the settings are either auto, 1-second flash, or a 2-second flash. And I've had this drone out 3,000 feet away from me in very low light conditions. And with that bottom light, as well, of course, as your top strobe, no problem seeing it at all. Good feature. And don't think I'm going to leave you hanging as to where that feature is. What you'd have to do is open up the Autel Sky app, which is the app that controls the Autel Evo Lite Plus. And you go to the settings icon in the upper right corner. Go to the settings and then go to the safety tab. And from there, you'll scroll down till you see the advanced settings. Click on that, and then it'll say auxiliary bottom light. And on that, it has a drop-down feature also with 5, let me do this here, 5 options. Off, but turn the bottom light off, turn the bottom light on, turn the bottom light on auto, which is what will give you that 15-second riser to the ground. In other words, when it takes off, the light will come on. When it lands 15 feet from the ground, the light comes on. And then you've got flash 1 second. And then you've got flash 2 seconds. If you choose, for instance, I use the flash 1 second. If you choose that option, the auto will still work. In other words, the drone will take off and it'll go up to 15 feet, and the light stays on constantly. After 15 feet, once you've gone to higher than that, it'll start to flash. The bottom light will flash 1 second at a time. So it is a pretty handy feature when you get out there at night or in low light conditions, or even in the daylight, because this thing is really bright. I'm very impressed with it. So just something to know. Okay, so in the interest of time with this video, I'm just going to go over very quickly some of the pros and cons. They're just smaller items that I've noticed. I don't want to spend too much time on, but I would like to bring to your attention. Number one, this drone is a pretty heavy drone. It's about I can't remember the exact gram weight right off the top of my head. I know it's up there. It's like 700 and whatever. Anyway, it's about 1.25 pounds, 1.33 pounds. So it's kind of heavy. As compared to my Mavic 2 Zoom, which weighs in at 2 pounds, and also my Mavic Air 2 and my Mavic Air 2S, which are under the weight of the Autel Evo Lite, this is easily the quietest drone of all three of those. That's what the stock propellers that it came with. So that really impressed me. I mean, I can't sit here and put up a demo video to show you or to let you hear one way or the other. It's just going to be one of those things you're going to notice out in the field. I mean, you're going to hear more drone noise, of course, when you're going up or when you're landing, and that's typical, but at a hover at 100 feet, you're not probably going to hear it. So that was one of the things. The other thing that I noticed too is, I know this drone, the specs say it has a range of, I can't remember, 8 or 10 kilometers. And I'm not going to go 8 or 10 kilometers, which is like 5 miles or whatever. But I am going to tell you this. As you can see from some of my videos that I've already shown on here, I do fly in heavily urban areas. And this drone, more than any other drone so far, has never given me a signal bar out of 5, anything below a 3. Has never dropped video frames on the transmission back to my device. In other words, the signal is incredible for the amount of interference that is around it as compared to my DJI Air 2S, which I use very frequently. I do have to monitor it because I am going to see some freeze screening if I get, I don't know, maybe a couple thousand feet out in the downtown area. All I'm saying is, so far of all the drones that I've had, this one is signal-wise one of the best. Number 3 on the pro list, it has one little ability, and you can get to it by going to the settings in the camera. You can put a date timestamp on all your pictures and all your videos. Some people would say, well, that's going to ruin the shot. Well, all you need to do is crop it just a little bit, because it's going to be in that lower left corner or wherever you choose it to be. In other words, you can get it out of the frame if you want to. The reason why I like this is I tend to keep almost all of my pictures and videos. Computers, if you change operating systems, if you do an upgrade on your computer, a lot of that metadata can get lost. In other words, when you transfer the files of your picture that you took in 1971, well, that's not going to show a digital metadata data, but okay, let's just do something newer. Say you're going to transfer your pictures from 1998 to a new hard drive and to a new operating system. That data is not going to transfer. More than likely it's going to get lost in the transfer, and it will show a create date of the day you started your computer. So there's that. Another pro that I'm going to bring up very briefly, and this is also in the camera settings. This drone, as you are filming in whatever format you choose, either the high-res 5.7K or 4K or 2.7K or 1080p or whatever you're filming in, has the ability to take photos determined on the amount of time you want those photos taken. In other words, it can take a photo at either 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30-second intervals while you're filming. Why is this good? This is good because sometimes you want a photo of that one thing that you saw, and it's like, well, you know, if I pull it off the video, it's just never going to quite look as good. The downside of these photos is the resolution compared to a regular photo that you would have taken. The regular photos in this drone come out to around 6 to 7 megapixels. The photos that you're going to get while the drone is filming are in the 2 to 3 megapixel range. Not great, but you can work with them. And no, it will not take raw images while you're filming. It's not going to do that, just JPEG. Now let's talk about some of the cons. This drone requires many more compass calibrations than I'm used to doing. When I flew my Mavic 2 Zoom regularly, the compass calibration dance was a ritual. I mean, if you went any more than 30 miles from the last place that you took off, you were going to do the calibration compass dance. This drone is unfortunately the same thing. It has a very sensitive compass, and in fact, if you move it even less than 30 miles, you can move it a mile, and depending on where you set the drone down, it'll want to do a calibration dance. So yeah, thumbs down on that. But having said that, I have taken the drone off from the roof of my car, and of course I had the compass warnings. And this drone, unlike the DJI drone, when it has a compass warning, will not let you take off. You have to literally tap on that thing. It says, do you want to bypass this? And then it'll let you take off. So in other words, it's saying, if you crash this drone, it's your fault, dude. Horizon tilt. Horizon tilt was an issue that plagued me with my Evo 1. Constantly had to forever adjust my horizon pitch while in flight with my Evo 1. This drone is a little different. Initially there was some issues with some horizon tilt. In fact, one of the hyperlapses in Galveston actually showed it. If you look real close, you'll see the water starting to flow one way. But that's really not the issue with this one so much, because it really doesn't do it that often. The horizon does stay level, but this is one thing I do find a little annoying. When the drone has the same ability as DJI, that when you hit the FN button, which is your programmable button, you can flip the drone's camera 90 degrees, up or down. In other words, down 90 degrees, up 180 to make it level. The problem is when you do that, it takes a few seconds actually for it to get to that position. In other words, if you just flipped it down, it flips down, but it doesn't go all the way to 90. It's sitting there at like 82 degrees, and then slowly gets into the 90 degree position. A little frustrating when you're trying to land really, really fast. Because I don't know about you, but when I have to land really fast, I want to know exactly where I'm landing. I don't want to land in a tree. I want to know where I'm going to land. And I don't want to wait for that gimbal to right itself to that 90 degree position to tell me where I am. A little annoying. Not a deal breaker. Another con. When shooting PANO photos, I love doing PANO photos, you can get a really good perspective of the things around you with either the wide angle or the landscape PANO in this drone. Here's the problem though. Those PANOs are created in the app. You have to access them and download them from the app to your device. If you don't, you can still access the PANO on your computer. The trouble is, this is on a PC, not a Mac. I'm not sure how a Mac would work. On a PC, when you pull the SD card and put it in the PC, there's literally going to be files on the SD card that are going to say PANOR. I don't know what it means. There's PANO pictures in there. And depending on the kind of PANO you take, there's anywhere from 8 to 26. 26 is a sphere. 8 is a wide angle, 12 is a landscape, landscape is generally 180 degrees. Now you can take the landscape and the wide angle and put them into, say, Lightroom and do a merge, and they absolutely look spectacular. They look actually better than the ones that the Sky app produces, because the Sky app, it'll bring those photos together, but it distorts them on the edges, which some people like that effect. It depends on what you're going for. Sometimes I like to use them, sometimes I don't. I like the effect of in Lightroom that you're getting a full view without all that distortion. The other problem is if you try to put a 26 photo sphere panorama in Lightroom, it's not going to work. So in other words, the only choice you do have is to download that sphere PANO photo from the app to your phone and hope it works. And I say hope because I'm 1 for 3 on those. So, like I said, these are the cons. And next, we're going to talk about side-by-side stuff, mostly the camera of the DJI Air 2S and the Autel Evo Lite Plus. Stick around. Okay, so in this section, in the interest of time, I'm going to keep the chatter to a minimum because this video is running way too long as it is. I didn't plan on it to go this long. Yeah, I talk too much. So what I'm going to do, I've made a bunch of side-by-side videos featuring the camera from the DJI Air 2S as well as the Autel Evo Lite Plus. And I'm not going to say much of anything, if anything at all. But I'm going to let you decide. You, in the comments, can leave whatever you'd like to leave and tell me what you think side-by-side view of these two drones looks like. Let's take a look. Okay, one more feature I want to talk about real quick before we wrap this is the digital zoom on the Autel Evo Lite Plus, as well as the DJI Air 2S. Both zoom features are digital zooms. A lot of people discount this as not being usable or just not that clear or that good. On the other hand, I've found them to be somewhat useful, actually. As you can see here in the Autel Evo zoom feature, it depends on what you want to use it for. You know, what I don't like about it is if you're going to zoom in, there's no good smooth way to do it. Whereas with the DJI Air 2S, you can use the FN button and the scroll wheel on the left side to zoom in or out very smoothly and evenly. Unfortunately, the Lite Plus does not really have that feature. You're either at one of the settings or you're not. One advantage, though, to the Lite Plus on zooming is the photos that you take. You can take some pretty darn good photos zoomed in, and if you have the right software to work with those photos in post, you can make those pictures look really, really spectacular. Topaz Labs is one of the ones that I would recommend for fixing overpixelated photos. You can play with the sharpness and the noise on it and get it to look pretty good. But just something I wanted to bring up and mention here just real quick before we wrap this up. So in summary, it basically just gets down to this: would I recommend this drone or not? And I would highly recommend this drone. This drone is, I would think this drone is generally geared towards intermediate camera drone pilots. For instance, when I started out with drones and camera drones, I started out with a Spark. I felt it was adequate at the time. I didn't know anything about photography really, but as the years progressed, I really started to take lessons on, you know, the various things that make photography what it is: shutter speeds, aperture, timing, lighting. So, you know, this drone does help you in a lot of those features the way a professional mirrorless or DSLR camera drone or camera would. So definitely recommend this drone as a camera drone. It will get you shots that you will almost always be impressed with, and it's just something that you're going to feel very, very rewarded at the end of the day, looking at what you've managed to capture, depending on what you're shooting, of course. I mean, if you're capturing rooftops for a business, yeah, it's going to do great at that too, but it just depends on what you use this camera for. But once again, I do highly recommend it. I do hope you get it, and let me know in the comments if you do. I'd like to thank you all for hanging with me. This has been a long video. I don't like doing long videos. And I hope to see you in the next one, and I hope to see you hanging around my channel. Thank you.